All right, guys, what's up? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel. This is where I talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff I love to talk about. That includes movies, that includes video games, comic books, TV shows. And right now, I want to give my top 10 possible Macguffins for Indiana Jones 5. That's right. We've been talking a lot about Indiana Jones 5 lately. You know, it sounds like it's finally going to happen. Steven Spielberg has stepped back as director. The director of Logan is on board now, and it sounds like this is going to happen. But what's it going to be about? Because we don't want another repeat of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was bad. Now, I do believe Kingdom of the Crystal Skull probably gets a little more hate than it deserves. It wasn't the worst movie ever made, but it wasn't good. And you compare it to the quality of the first 3 Indiana Jones movies, and it was just apparent who the redheaded stepchild was. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is just not up to snuff with the other movies. It's really not up to snuff with any good movie. It's not a very good movie, but I do think it gets a bad rap. But that being said, you know, I often think about what was the problem. Well, there was some silly decisions made, to be sure. The whole fridge incident was definitely not a good decision. But I just felt like this is a character, Indiana Jones, who feels out of place for me in a science fiction environment. You know, I know that this happened in the 50s, and you know, there was classic sci-fi was just having its birth. You know, we were just getting those classic science fiction movies. Star Trek was just on the horizon a few years later, and space was like this big deal. But the idea of there being actual aliens in an Indiana Jones movie, it didn't work for me. It felt silly. It felt stupid. It felt like it betrayed the kind of stuff that Indiana Jones normally does. Because Indiana Jones, in the first 3 movies, he went after religious artifacts. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark of the Covenant, a Christian artifact. Temple of Doom, he went after the La Shankar stones, Hindu artifacts. Last Crusade, the Holy Grail, back to a Christian artifact. And all 3 of those were very strong movies because they centered around a religious MacGuffin. Indiana Jones 4 went around an alien MacGuffin, something that actually exists. You know, we've seen crystal skulls. If you've seen any of Expedition Unknown, you've seen that there are crystal skulls out there. You know, in Central and South America. But it just wasn't interesting because it didn't feel like it fit the vibe with Indiana Jones. Some of these probably fit the vibe better than others. I've got 10 artifacts here. Some of them aren't necessarily artifacts, but 10 things here that I believe he could be looking for. And not all of them are religious artifacts, but the top ones are. Because I think religious artifacts are really what works best with Indiana Jones. But let's talk about these. Number 10 for me, the number 10 thing that I think that Indiana Jones could look for in Part 5 is El Dorado. Not a religious artifact. It's a place, it's a city that may or may not have existed. Some call it the City of Gold. And you know, this is one of those, it's at the bottom of my list because I think it would be compelling, I think it would be interesting, but it's been done to death. We've had lots of movies looking for the Lost City of Gold, lots of movies looking for El Dorado. You know, Alan Quartermain was looking for the Lost City of Gold. Alan Quartermain is a character that is very much in the same vein as Indiana Jones. So I just don't know if that's the best fit, so it's number 10. And honestly, I feel like it would be higher up on the list if there weren't others that had already done this. But since there are so many that have already done this, it's number 10. Number 9. Number 9 is the Trident of Poseidon. And it's number 9 because I think that it's probably a little bit much for an Indiana Jones movie. You know, Indiana Jones never kind of wielded power like that. In fact, he's never really wielded power. And while, you know, we look at the Ark of the Covenant, we look at some of the stuff that was done by the cult in Temple of Doom, you know, we look at these things and there was definitely supernatural power there, but it wasn't like an individual wielding power. So while I think it would be an interesting story, I'm not sure if it fits with Indy. So the Trident of Poseidon is my number 9. All right, number 8 is kind of the last one that I think is compelling. I think it's a compelling idea, but I'm not sure how well it fits with Indy. And it's also something that's been done a lot, and that's the Lost City of Atlantis. You know, there was even a comic book run on Indiana Jones and the Lost City of Atlantis. So it's literally been done with the character before. So how would this look on a movie? You know, would we be looking at finding ruins? Would be looking at finding, you know, some sort of advanced hidden society? You know, what would the story? I think a lot of how it would fit with the character would be dependent on what kind of story they're looking at telling. But this is a story that's very familiar with pretty much everybody. Everybody's heard about this. Everybody knows the Lost City of Atlantis. So might be an interesting take. It's my number 8. Number 7 is the Aigis Shield. It's from Greek mythology. The Aigis Shield is from Greek mythology, and it is the shield of Zeus. Oftentimes, Athena used it, but it's the shield of Zeus. It's a shield that is covered up in some sort of animal skin, and it's got supernatural powers. You know, in some stories, it was described that the Aegis Shield was able to push back entire armies. I think it would be interesting for Indy to go after a Greek artifact. You know, I've already got the Trident of Poseidon on there. I think the Aegis Shield would be a better fit for Indy because it is more along the lines of, it's not like a superpower. It's more like a power of a god. And I know that the Poseidon Trident is the power of a god, but I just feel like the Aegis Shield is going to be more non-superpowerish and more let's keep this out of the wrong hands-ish. Make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think that would be a really interesting artifact for him to go after. So the Aegis Shield is number 7. Number 6, from Arthurian legend. Arthurian? From Arthurian legend is Morgana's wand. You know, Morgana Le Fay is this character that's always been prevalent in Arthurian legend. You know, in any kind of Arthur story, usually Morgana plays some sort of a role in it. And, you know, oftentimes she's a villain. Sometimes she's actually been heroic. Usually she's a villain. Oftentimes she's portrayed as Arthur's sister or Arthur's half-sister. Usually she's portrayed as some sort of a foil to Merlin, you know, Arthur's sorcerer that works with him. But she has a wand. And that would be an interesting artifact to go after. This isn't the only Arthurian artifact that I've got on my list, but the wand would definitely bring some supernatural elements to Indiana Jones. So I don't know. I don't know that it would be a great fit. I wouldn't want Indiana Jones to feel like Harry Potter. But I think that Morgana's wand would at least be an interesting MacGuffin to explore for the character. Number 5. Number 5 I actually think fits really well. Really well. The problem was it's been done fairly recently. It was the MacGuffin in Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Yes. I think Indiana Jones, I think a great storyline would be for him to go after the Fountain of Youth. How interesting would that be for the character? This character who's now, you know, let's face it, he's in his, what is Harrison Ford? In his 80s now? Late 70s? The dude has lived his life. And hopefully he still has lots of life to live. But as a character, he's got to be facing his mortality now. And what does that mean for somebody like Indiana Jones? And to have the Fountain of Youth dangling in front of him, how could he say no to going after that? I think it would be a way more interesting storyline with him with Indiana Jones, where he is in his life, as opposed to Jack Sparrow. On Stranger Tides was by far the weakest Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And I just found the whole Fountain of Youth thing to be a little, I don't know, just a little silly. They built it up in the first 3 movies and then did nothing with it. I think there's a lot of potential that they didn't explore in the Pirates movies that I think Indiana Jones could. And I think that he's actually in the perfect spot to explore that. So that's number 5. Number 4 is a little bit different. It is a religious artifact, but it's a little bit different in the fact that, as far as I know, there's not any supernatural powers tied to it, and that is that's the true cross. So the true Christian cross that Jesus was crucified on. We know that there's lots of parts of the world that claim to have the true cross. So what would it mean for him to have to uncover the true cross? What would that mean politically in the world? Maybe none of them have the true one, and he is in a mission in the Middle East now to uncover that true cross. And what would that mean politically? Imagine how many different groups of people would be after him. So overall, I feel like the true cross would be a different kind of Indiana Jones movie. You know, there would be religious groups that would want it, and they would want to take it from him. And there would be religious groups that would be willing to turn to violence to get it from him. So I think it would be a little more along the lines of like a National Treasure movie than your typical Indiana Jones movie. Still could be interesting. So the True Cross is number 4. Number 3, I think, is really compelling because it would tie directly into the Temple of Doom. And that number 3 could be the Trident of Shiva. So, yeah, this is an interesting MacGuffin, possibly because of its power. And because, like I said, it ties in to the Lost Shankara stones from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. You know, the Trident obviously has 3 spokes, and the Trident of Shiva, the 3 spokes represent creation, maintenance, and destruction, or past, present, and future. More specifically, creation, maintenance, and destruction. And what would it mean for somebody to want to get a hold of the Shiva of Trident? You know, maybe it's the Russians. I don't know. Who cares? But what would it mean for somebody to want to get a hold of the Trident of Shiva, specifically to invoke that third fork, that third prong, destruction? I mean, it could tie directly into the Temple of Doom, but it also could raise the stakes higher than they've ever been in an Indiana Jones movie. So yeah, I think that's really compelling. You know, it could be a disaster, it could be a dumpster fire, but as far as the MacGuffin itself, I think it's compelling. So the Trident of Shiva I have as number 3. Number 2 is the Staff of Moses. The Staff of Moses, the staff from the story of the Exodus. You know, the staff that brought the plagues onto Egypt, the staff that parted the Red Sea. You know, the staff that Moses channeled God's power through. How compelling would that be for Indiana Jones to be after? You know, in my opinion, the best, some people are going to throw tomatoes at the screen now, but in my opinion, the best Indiana Jones movie is The Last Crusade. I think it's slightly better than Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I do like Last Crusade better. And they were after a very well-known Christian MacGuffin, the Holy Grail. The Staff of Moses is also one of those well-known Christian MacGuffins that I think would be, would kind of feel like it would cap out the Indiana, like some sort of Indiana Jones Christian MacGuffin trilogy between the Lost Ark, the Holy Grail, and the Staff of Moses. I think that would be an interesting way to end the Harrison Ford Indiana Jones stories, is with one final Christian MacGuffin, the Staff of Moses. I think that'd be interesting. So that's my number 2. But my number 1 is a artifact from Arthurian legend. I think a lot of you probably know what it is, but I think that the Sword of Excalibur would be a fantastic MacGuffin for an Indiana Jones movie. And I think it would be a great way to end the Harrison Ford movies. And I mean, just think about all the things that are tied in to the Sword of Excalibur. You know, the all the aspects of Arthurian legend that are tied into Excalibur. You know, the sword in the stone, the lady in the lake. I mean, there's so much legend that surrounds Excalibur. Um, I think it'd be great to have Indiana Jones find out that he is a descendant of Arthur, or maybe somebody he knows is a descendant of Arthur. You know, I think that there's a lot of possibilities that could really be a really fun cap on the five Indiana Jones movies with Harrison Ford. So I think the Sword of Excalibur would be a lot of fun. So that's where I'm at on it. So what about you guys? Did any of these 10 MacGuffins, do you think any of them could be an interesting story for Indy 5? Is there any of these that you think would be a bad choice? Any of these that you think would be a likely choice? Or is there something else entirely, something I haven't even thought of that you think would be a good MacGuffin? Let me know these things in the comments down below. Thank you so much for being here at the LQ Review. This is where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff we love to talk about, and I love talking about it with you guys, so thank you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and until next time, we'll see you later.